Dan, really, really excited to talk to you today about building a sales team. I'm building 2 sales teams right now. I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong. So I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing. I'm going to just ask you questions, and I'll tell you, I'll confess at the end if I'm doing it right or wrong. So building a sales team, like where do you start? Like,
Yeah.
no salespeople, no sales process. What do you do? It's the first thing.
So number one, let's say like you need somebody selling. Usually it's the founder, right? So we call it founder selling. So we'll start there. So the founder sells. Okay. Here's what needs to happen while that's happening on the side. Okay. Is you need to be documenting what you're doing. See, founders don't realize that they have things they say or processes, et cetera, that are intuitive to them to get the deal, but they don't document any of it. So I'm talking about as you're selling, your email follow-ups that you're sending out, the flow of the demo call, how you're qualifying people, who you're realizing are your best customers, all that needs to get documented in what I call a sales program playbook, okay? So a Google Doc, whatever you want to write it in, and you just write down all the different things that you're doing, from copy and pasting emails you're placing in there, PowerPoint decks, if you're using a PowerPoint deck, how your demo flow is going, how you're dealing with objections, like everything is documented in there. So that's number one. Mm-hmm. Then I would say you got to look at your time as a salesperson, because you really should be spending most of your time on doing the demo and following up. That's it, right? So if you're spending time prospecting, you need to look at that. If you're spending time on configuring and onboarding customers, you got to look at that. So usually the first next hire, if you're spending more than 20% of your time on any one of those tasks, you should hire somebody. Usually that's going to be what I call a sales support rep. That means that you'll still do demos, right? You got to obviously get your marketing team to get your calendar full. But then the qualification, what's called usually your SDR, your sales development rep, before, and your customer success person who's going to onboarding them, that can be the same person. So I actually call it a sales support role. And what their job is to follow your playbook to qualify and follow your onboarding playbook to activate customers. So essentially think about it, Sujan, if you were my sales support rep, you would be first contact with the customer. So somebody reaches inbound, you'd be like, hey, I'd love to learn more about your business. You ask them, and then you qualify them. Once they're qualified, you say, I'd love to schedule a call with Dan, our product specialist, to see if our product can meet some of those challenges that you mentioned in our email. You schedule the time in my calendar. I get on a call with Joe, the prospect. I get through them. They decide to buy at the end. I negotiate it. I follow up. I deal with objections. Boom, they're in. And then I say, hey, I'm going to pass you back to Sujan. He's going to get your account set up and set up training and all that stuff. So I think that's a really efficient first pass at starting to get some support in the sales process. But then at some point, you got to figure out, it's like, where are you backed up, right? Because I believe like there's 6 core functions of a SaaS business. And anytime you fix one, you break the next one, right? So if you fix marketing, you break sales. You fix sales, you break customer success. So potentially it could be you got to hire somebody full-time to take over the customer success side for onboarding and monitoring and making sure people get activated. And then it's about backfilling the SDR role. And the reason why is I really believe that you can take somebody, train them to be pretty good at SDR, and then with a little bit more training, they can become an account exec, right? Your primary salesperson. It's usually less efficient to hire somebody to replace the founder at first. It's way more efficient to hire somebody to give the founder more time, to spend more time on sales, to then have that person move up into account exec, start doing their own sales calls, and then backfilling with an SDR there, right? And then once you've got that, I mean, depending on your sales process, if you're doing outbound, then you'll have what's called BDRs, business development reps. They're people that are going outbound, or you're doing SDR where you're qualifying, so chatbots, inbound lead gen, et cetera, emails, contact form, et cetera. They're going to qualify and then set the call up for the account exec, or what I like to call product specialist. That's the structure, man. I can nerd out on this stuff because I've helped my clients build, big teams, but that's at a high level how I think a founder, if you're just starting off, should add a sales process. And you got to make sure your product has at least, I think, a 3,000 a year annual contract value to be able to really build a sales team at scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a couple of things I want to just kind of double click on that you talked about. So first of all, you said, hire an SDR, somebody to kind of do the stuff around you. if you're the founder doing sales. And I think that's really important because like the founder doing sales is something that is hard to replace, right? The charisma, the energy, the product, industry experience, all the details. But at the same time, you hire the SDR to do the front and back of that. They're learning too, right? Like as a byproduct, right? Like you can record your calls if you do like screen shares like Zoom or something and just share that with them. And like, hey, look, in 6 months, I want you to do this. In 3 months, I want you to do this. But to get somebody to go and say, sell better than me,
No,
day one,
and
it's not gonna
just so
happen.
you know, never happens. Usually it's a 20% drop in conversions, and you got to be okay with that. So you really need to make sure that you build the systems to create predictability, not depend on a superstar salesperson.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned that I want to talk to you is like you mentioned is you didn't like you mentioned about really doing inbound first, figuring that out, then kind of adding in the chatbots, going through the lead forms, and then outbound, right? Like not outbound first. I feel like a lot of folks just go like, I want to do sales, all outbound. How are you going to figure out how to do it, right? What do people want?
It's too expensive. I mean, a lot of people don't realize like outbound can take 12 to 16 months to be efficient if you don't have a process or some scripts to follow.
Yeah.
If you don't use good segmentation, if you don't have a good, hook in your email to get people interested. And I just think like, if you're doing it, like you can have a free trial product. Like one of my clients, Proposify, that I coached, we've started to scale up their sales team because they had a lot of people kind of, on the SMB level, right? The small level, but they were starting to get, these kind of like 3 to 10K ACV deals, but they didn't really formalize the sales process, right? And I think that sometimes can be the case where you don't even, you have a free trial process, and the product gets to the point where people are starting to buy, $200, $300 a month product plans from you. But at that point, usually they want to talk to somebody. Like there's just something psychological that happens. If I'm going to spend $250 a month, I just feel like I want to have a conversation with somebody to make sure that it's going to meet my needs. It's going to be able to grow with me, that it integrates with certain workflows that I might have. And having a sales process supported by harvesting from the trials based on some level of what I call a funnel filter, qualifying them to kick them up to a product specialist conversation, to even be able to grow their initial contract value with you or get a multi-year contract, I think is huge. And if you've got enough of the trials, there's definitely people in there that would appreciate and you would benefit from a sales conversation. So either start with a sales process, then you're all about getting demos, or you can even harvest from your trial flow.
Absolutely. I mean, like, HubSpot does it. They call it product qualified leads, right? They get everybody through this whole massive free trial funnel. They even give away free products. And then as you use stuff, I mean, they can see your domain name, right? So like you get everybody through your free trial. I'm like, oh, Microsoft? Hell yeah, we're going to do a 3-year contract, right? Or like, I'm going to charge them. I think in some of your videos, you talk about charging based off value, not whatever.
Enterprise companies, their number one fear is not getting value, like them getting fired from not getting it deployed. HubSpot charges an extra 20% for coaching because they know their clients want that to have, not to do it for them, but to be held accountable to get the HubSpot technology deployed. In regards to PQLs, I mean, Michael Litt from Vidyard, good friend of mine, he's talked a lot about it. They just did integration with HubSpot, so it's probably where he heard about it. But like Slack and Dropbox, et cetera, they've been doing this because even segmenting your user base in the product in regards to mid-market versus enterprise, an enterprise customer has a different appropriate experience that they expect from a sales point of view than a mid-market customer. So even figuring out what's a PQL for your mid-market sales team versus your enterprise sales team needs to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and I think I like your slogan of just fucking do it, right? Like people always
JFDI,
like, I need to get, you need to do this, that filter. I need to figure out all the data. It's like, dude, pick up the phone and talk to 100 people, and I guarantee you, after the 100th call, you'll be like, okay, these guys fit here, this fits here. I kind of have some puzzle pieces to go off of. So that's awesome. Any other things you want to share on building a sales team process, what have you?
No, I've got a rocket demo framework if people are interested in kind of like how to do the demo, because I think that a lot of people, especially founders, they do product tours, they don't do product demos. They ended up, spending an hour. They don't actually stretch the gap to create the tension required for a good sales conversation. They hang up the call because the person says, "Sounds great. Send me some information. I'll get back to you." I mean, if you go okay and just hang up the call, that's amateur hour at best. So I kind of go through that because I only work with founders, and helping them sell better is a big part. So that's why I put together that resource.
Awesome. And I'll link that in the show notes or the video notes here on the bottom. So definitely check that out. I've seen a teaser of that. I literally, before we jumped on, I watched the video there. So I know it's really good stuff. Well, thanks, Dan. Where can people find you? Where do they go?
Yeah, so Dan Martell, 12martell.com. YouTube, same thing, just search Dan Martell. And then Instagram, I share a lot on the IG, on the stories, how I work with clients in my personal life. If you guys are interested in following along, I'd love to have you part of the community.
Awesome, Dan. Thanks again for your time. And definitely you guys should check out his YouTube, all those places, but YouTube, if you want to see just knowledge bombs left and right. And then Instagram stories, awesome, super inspirational stuff because you share the actual weeds of what you do for certain people who I'm assuming some of your clients would not like. It's just like you can learn just one or two nuggets on every Instagram story. So that's a lot more than I get from most of my stories I watch. Awesome,
cool, I appreciate it, Sujan.
Take care. Thank you.
Cool. Talk soon.